If you need to pass GED math, know that understanding geometry can help you pass faster and get a higher score. So if your math test is coming up and you haven't studied much geometry yet, don't worry, because in this video we're going to walk through key examples together and cover tips, tricks, and strategies to help you boost your score so you can hopefully move ahead to bigger and better things in life like college or a better job or joining the military, whatever your goal happens to be faster. And we're going to get started now. If the area of a square is 49 square meters, what is the length of one side of the square? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? Now, since we're just practicing to save you some time, I put the formulas for squares from the formula sheet, and it's up to you to decide which formula or formulas to use for this question. But on the real test, you'll want to go to that formula sheet that they'll give you, and you'll want to look up the formulas. I'm just giving these to you now to save you some time since we're just practicing. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need. Then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so here we're asked, what is the length of one side of the square? And we know that the area is 49 square meters. So we're going to use the area formula right here. And since we are given the area, we're going to plug 49 in here for A. All right, so 49 equals S squared, where S is the length of one side of the square. So how do we get S here? Well, a really common mistake would be to try to do this, to say, well, I'm going to do 49 squared to get S. So if you thought that that was how to solve the question, absolutely no worries. I just want to point this out, just so you know if you get something like this on your test. This is a really common mistake. So rather than squaring 49, what we want to do is take the square root of 49. All right, so the square root of 49 is 7. The square root of S squared is S. And the correct answer here is B, 7. If the area of a triangle is 1,600 square meters and the base is 100 meters, what is the height in meters? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? Now, just to save you some time, I put the formula for the area of a triangle right here. And on the real test, you'll want to go to the formula sheet and you'll want to pick out this formula. But to save time, I've just given it to you here. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need. Then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll go over it. Okay, so in this case here, what do we need to find? Well, we need to find the height, which is H. And we know that the area is 1,600, so I'm going to plug that into the formula for A. And we also know that the base is 100, so I'm going to take 100 and plug that into the formula for B. All right, so when I rewrite this, this is what it'll look like. It'll look like 1,600 equals half times 100 times H. So what I'm going to do here is do 100 divided by 2 right off the bat, and I know that that's 50. So I'm going to now rewrite this again as 1,600 equals 50H. Now, the name of the game here is to get the H by itself. So how do I do that? Well, I have 50H. That's 50 times H. And if I divide by 50, the 50s will cancel out, leaving me with just H. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side as well. So I'm going to do 1,600 divided by 50. And when I do that, I get 32. So 32 equals H. So the correct answer here is C, 32. If the length of a rectangle equals 12 meters and the width equals 4 meters, please calculate both the area and perimeter of the rectangle and write your answers in the box below. Now, obviously, you won't really be able to write your answers in the box, so maybe if you have a sheet of paper nearby, you could write it down on paper, however you want to do it. And also, please note that I've given you the formulas right here just to save you some time, but on the test, you'll want to look these formulas up on the formula sheet if you get a question like this. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try this out. If you get stuck, no worries, because we're just going to go over it. So I'll give you a chance to try it now. Okay, so let's talk about the question here. So the first part asks for the area. So to get the area, we're going to do length times width. So I'm going to do 12 times 4, and that equals 48. Now, you might be wondering, what if I forget which one's the length and which one's the width? Well, as long as you multiply the two numbers together, the order doesn't matter. So what I mean is you could do 12 times 4 and you'll get 48. You could also do 4 times 12 and you're also going to get 48. So the key with the area is just to remember to take the two sides of the rectangle and multiply them together. Now, we know that the area is 48, but what about the perimeter? So the formula for perimeter is P equals 2L plus 2W. So I'm going to do 2 times 12, and then I'm going to do plus 2 times 4. And again, the same thing here. You could do 2 times 4 plus 2 times 12, and you would get the same answer either way. And when I do the math here, I get 32. So the perimeter is 32. So final answers, area 48, perimeter 32. The triangle below has 3 internal angles. How many degrees does the missing angle measure? Please write your answer in the box below. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so the key to getting this question right is knowing that the 3 internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Again, the 3 internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So the key to getting this question right is remembering that the 3 internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So based off of this fact, I can write an equation. 30 plus 70 plus x equals 180. Now, why did I write x here? Well, I wrote x here to represent the missing angle because we don't know what this angle is. Now, I have 180 here because the 3 internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So I have 30 plus 70 plus x equals 180. So what is 30 plus 70? 30 plus 70 is 100. So I have 100 plus x equals 180. And again, I want to get the x by itself here. So what I'm going to do is clear the 100 by subtracting 100. And whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. So we'll see that x equals 80. So the correct answer here is 80. Now, the main takeaway that I want you to get from this question is that the 3 internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. If the area of a trapezoid is 400, the length of base 1 is 20, and the length of base 2 is 80, what is the height? So here's the formula that you'll want to use to answer the question, but just know that on the test you'll want to go to the formula sheet and find this formula if you get a question like this. So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try this out, take all the time you need, and if you get stuck or have any problems with it, absolutely no worries because we're just going to go over it. Okay, so how do we answer this question? Well, I'm going to start by taking all the numbers that I'm given and plugging them into the formula. So we know that the area is 400, so I'm going to plug that in for A. Now we know that base 1 is 20, so I'm going to plug that in down here for base 1. And we know that base 2 is 80, so I'm going to plug 80 in here for base 2. And we don't know what h is, so the name of the game here is to plug all of these numbers in, and then we're going to solve for h. Now, when I say solve for h, what I mean is we want to end up with h on one side of the equation, and if we do that, we're going to get the right answer. Now, one other point I want to make here, as you can see, there are 2 bases here when it comes to a trapezoid. So the bases of a trapezoid are the 2 flat sides, right? So here's a base, and here's a base down here. So let me plug these numbers in and then I'll show you what it's going to look like. So when I plug numbers in, I get 400 equals half times h parenthesis 20 plus 80 parenthesis. Now, just note that you'll still get the same answer if instead of doing 20 plus 80, you put 80 plus 20. So just keep that in mind here. But anyway, what I'm going to do next is 20 plus 80, and then I'm going to divide by 2. So what is 20 plus 80 divided by 2? Well, 20 plus 80 is 100, and then if I divide by 2, I get 50. So I'll now have 50 times h. So I have 400 equals 50 times h. And how do I get the h by itself? Well, since I have 50 times h, I want to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I want to divide by 50 here on both sides. So when I do that, I see that 8 is the correct answer here. B is the correct answer. Patty is building a rectangular deck on top of her lawn. The remaining portion of the lawn consists of grass. Given that the measurements in the diagram above are in yards, what is the square yardage of the grassy part of the lawn? Now, just to save you some time, I've given you two formulas here that go along with rectangles on the formula sheet, and it'll be up to you to decide which formula or formulas you want to use to answer the question. And if you have any trouble with this question, absolutely no worries. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try this out, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause it, and we'll talk about it. Okay, so what we have to do here is find the area of the whole lawn, and then we're going to find the area of the deck portion, and we're going to subtract. So basically, I'm going to start by doing 10 times 8. So I'm going to do 10 times 8. So that's the first area calculation that I'm going to do, and 10 times 8 is 80. Now the second area calculation that I'm going to do is 5 times 4. And if you ever get confused about which one's the length and the width, don't worry about that. Just remember that you have to multiply side times side. So the point here is that if instead of doing 10 times 8, you did 8 times 10, you still get 80. And if instead of doing 5 times 4, you went the other way and you did 4 times 5, you still get 20 either way. So for an area calculation, the formula is length times width, but just know that if you do width times length instead, it's going to give you the same answer. But anyway, now what I want to do is 80 minus 20. Okay, and 80 minus 20 is 60. All right, so again, just to recap here, the way that we solve this question is by getting the area of the whole lawn by doing 10 times 8. And then we wanted to find the area of the deck by doing 5 times 4. And then we just subtracted the area of the deck, and that's how we got the answer here. So one last tip I want to leave you with here is that area is measured in square units. So let's say that you got a question like this and you just weren't sure what to do, but you saw that it was asking for square yardage. And if you remember that area is measured in square units, just the fact that we see the word square yardage here, that could be a clue that getting this question right is going to involve an area calculation. And in this case, we had to do two different area calculations. But the point I want to make here is that area is measured in square units. And sometimes if you see something like square yardage or square footage, that could be a tip-off that you're going to want to use the area formula at some point in the question. I'm really excited to announce that this video's champion shoutout goes out to Tiffany. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to read every word here, but basically Tiffany said, I've decided to go back and obtain my GED, and mind you, I've been out of school for 19 years, so it seemed really hard to obtain. Since being enrolled since January, I've passed my RLA Science and Social Studies GED test already, but math has always been my hardest subject. I failed the GED math test by 1 point. So shortly after that comment, Tiffany went on to say, I took my last GED test and passed with a 148 in math. I'm literally tearing up as I type this. For the ones who are trying to better themselves, I tell you to keep going. You're doing a great job and don't give up. You're a lot closer than you think. So I want to give a big congratulations to Tiffany. If the area of a circle is 81 pi, what is its diameter? And I've picked out the formulas that go along with circles from the formula sheet, and it'll be up to you to decide which formula or formulas you want to use. Also note that on the formula sheet, they say that pi is approximately 3.14, and you might not have to use that value to answer this question, but if you do, you'll want to use 3.14 in your calculation. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So to understand this question, we have to understand the difference between the diameter and the radius. So let's just say that this is a circle here. I know it doesn't look like one, but let's just say that it is. If I start at a point on the circle and I measure the whole way across, we call that the diameter. Now, on the other hand, if I start at one point on the circle and I measure halfway across the circle, we call that the radius. Now, I know neither of these look like circles, but just pretend that they are for a second here. And we can see that the diameter equals double the radius. And we can also see that the radius equals half of the diameter. So if you ever know the radius and you need to find the diameter, all you have to do is just double the radius and it gives you the diameter. Also, if you ever know the diameter and you have to find the radius, all you have to do is just cut that diameter in half and it gives you the radius. Now, sometimes people comment on my videos and they say that I ramble too much, but I promise you this is important rambling right now. And this is important rambling because I just want you to know the difference between the diameter and the radius and how to get the diameter if you know the radius and vice versa. So this is really important rambling. So anyway, let's talk now about how to do the calculation. So we know that the area of the circle is 81 pi. So I'm going to come down to the formula for the area of a circle, this a equals pi r squared, and I'm going to plug 81 pi in here for the area. So I have 81 pi equals pi r squared. And what I can see here is that since I've got pi on both sides of the equal sign, I can actually just cancel it out, which would just give me 81 equals r squared. Now, this is a very common scenario where test takers run into trouble. And where people run into trouble here is they'll see something like this and they'll say 81r squared. How do I get r? Well, I get r by squaring 81. So if you thought this, absolutely no worries right now since we're just practicing, but just be aware that on your test, if you get a scenario like this, what you have to do is take the square root of both sides. And for some reason, over my years of doing this, scenarios like this, it seems like, a lot of people usually have questions about them down in the comments. So whenever I get scenarios like this, I often stop and make a big deal out of it just to try to make the point here. And I'm rambling on here again because this is important rambling here because I want you to understand if you get a scenario like this, what you have to do is take the square root of both sides. You don't want to square 81. And you can take the square root of 81 by just using your calculator. So the way that you do this in your calculator is you'd hit second here, and then you come over here and press this button, and it'll bring up the square root symbol. Then you just enter 81, and you just hit the enter button, and it shows you the answer here. So the answer to the square root of 81 is 9. So I have 9 equals r. So A is the correct answer here, and we can move on to the next question. Oh wait, actually we can't because this is only the radius, right? So if you got here and you thought that A was the right answer, you did a really good job by getting here, but we have to take this one step further. And we have to find the diameter because remember, the question asks what is its diameter. So we know that the diameter is twice the radius. So all we have to do is double this and then we're done. So 9 times 2 is 18. So the correct answer here is C, 18. The triangle below is a right triangle. What is the length of side C? And since we're practicing right now, just to save some time, I just put the formula right here that you'll want to use to answer the question. But just know that on your test, if you get a question like this, you'll want to go to the formula sheet and pick out this formula. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try this out, take all the time you need. Then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So right now what we're doing is a Pythagorean theorem question. So if you get a question that involves a right triangle, there's a good chance that this is going to be the formula you're going to want to use. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So just keep that in mind here. You might also get a word problem where you have something like a ladder leaning up against a wall, something like that. The point here is that if you get a problem involving a right triangle, consider whether this is the formula that you're going to want to use because there's a good chance that this is what you're going to need to use to get the question right. Now here, what I'm going to do to start off is plug 8 in for A and plug 5 in for B. So A squared is 8 squared, which is 64, and B squared would be 5 squared, which is 25. So I have 64 plus 25 equals C squared. Now you might be wondering, what happens if I plug 5 in for A and 8 in for B? Well, nothing happens. You would just end up with this. You'd end up with 25 plus 64 equals C squared, which is going to give you the exact same answer. So what is 64 plus 25? 64 plus 25 is 89. So we'd have 89 equals C squared. Now, we're not done yet because we don't want to find C squared. We want to just find C. So how do we finish out here? Well, one common mistake that a lot of test takers will make in this scenario is they'll think that in order to get C, you have to square 89. And if you did this, absolutely no worries. Don't feel bad at all because it's a very common mistake I've seen over the years. And what we really want to do is take the square root. So if we take the square root of c squared, that gets us c. And the answer here is the square root of 89 equals c. So the correct answer to this question is B. What is the surface area of a pyramid with a slant height of 15 feet, a base with a perimeter of 18 feet, and a base with an area of 16 feet? Is the answer A, B, C, and D? And the formula is right here down below. On the real test, you'll want to go and you'll want to find this formula on the formula sheet if you get a question like this. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try this out, take all the time you need, then whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so let's plug the numbers in here. What is the surface area of a pyramid with a slant height of 15 feet? So we know that S stands for slant height, so I'm going to plug 15 into the formula in place of S. Now we know that it says a base with a perimeter of 18 feet, and we're going to plug 18 in there. And then it tells us here, and a base with an area of 16 feet. So the big B, the capital B here, we're going to put 16 in there. So this is how the numbers should look here. And crunching the numbers in the calculator gets me 151, and the correct answer is D, 151. What is the circumference of a circle that has a radius of 68 inches? And here are the two formulas that, or actually I should say the three formulas that go along with circles, and it's up to you to decide which formula or formulas you want to use. Also keep in mind that you'll want to use 3.14 for pi if you should use pi in the calculation. So let me give you a chance now to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need. Then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so for the circumference formula, there are two options here. We can use 2 pi r or we can use pi d. Now, since the question tells us that the radius is 68 inches, I'm going to go ahead and use the first formula here, c equals 2 pi r. Now, we know that pi is approximately 3.14, so I'm going to use 3.14 in place of pi, and then for the radius, I'm going to plug in 68 inches. So again, I picked the first formula here for the circumference, c equals 2 pi r. So right here is my 2, right here is my pi, and right here is 68 inches. So if we do the calculation here, we see that the answer is 427.04. So the right answer here is C. The triangle above has two sides that are equal in length. One angle measures 60 degrees, while the measures of the other two angles are unknown. What are the measures of the missing angles? Please write your answer in the box below. So now is your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and if you get stuck or aren't sure how to do it, absolutely no worries because we're just going to go over the answer. So there are really two key points that you need to understand to get this question right. So the first thing that you would have to do to get this right is to recognize that we have an isosceles triangle here. And for an isosceles triangle, two sides are the same length. So we see that this side right here is length 20, and this side over here is also length 20. So we have two sides that are the same length. Now, what we also need to know about an isosceles triangle is that the angles opposite from the equal sides are equal in measure. Now, you might be wondering, what in the world does that mean? Basically, these two angles right here are equal. So see how the two sides that are equal in length, right? We would see that the angles opposite these sides are equal. So again, in other words, just know that these two angles are equal. In this case here, we also have a triangle, and we need to remember that the three internal angles of a triangle add up to be 180 degrees. So we can write the equation 80 plus 2x equals 180. So let me back up here, right? So we know that the internal angles of a triangle add up to be 180 degrees, so that's why this is set equal to 180. And we also know that this angle right here is 80, so that's where the 80 came from. But why do I have 2x here? So we don't know what this angle is, and we don't know what this angle is, but we know that they're the same, so that's why I have 2x here. So now what we have to do is solve this for x. So let me start by subtracting 80 on both sides here. So when I do this, we see that the 80s cancel out on the left, and I'm going to have 2x equals 100. So now what I have to do is divide by 2 on both sides, and when I do that, I see that x equals 50. So we now know that each angle is 50 degrees, right? So this one's 50, and this one's also 50, right? So the answer here, the measures of the missing angles, they're both 50 degrees. What's the measure of the missing angle of the trapezoid? Is the answer A, B, C, or what about D? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so the key to getting this question right is recognizing that a trapezoid is a four-sided plane figure. Now, for a four-sided plane figure, the internal angles add up to 360 degrees. So let's write an equation here. So I can write 85 plus 105 plus 60 plus x equals 360. So for this angle here, the missing angle, I just wrote x because we don't know what it is. So remember, the key here is recognizing that a trapezoid is a four-sided plane figure, and that for a four-sided plane figure, the internal angles add up to be 360 degrees. So let's do 85 plus 105 plus 60. So when I do that in my calculator, I get 250. So we'll have 250 plus x equals 360. Now from here, how do I get x by itself? Well, what I have to do is subtract 250 from both sides. And when I do that, I see that the answer is 110 degrees. So B is the correct answer here. So just remember that for a four-sided plane figure, the internal angles add up to 360 degrees. Again, for a four-sided plane figure, the internal angles add up to 360 degrees. Which answer choice best approximates the volume of the figure above? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need. Then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So the idea here with this question is that we're going to calculate the volume of the rectangular prism, and we're going to calculate the volume of the cylinder, and then we're going to add the volumes together to get the final answer. Now, it doesn't really matter what order you start with here, but I'm going to do the rectangular prism first. So I'm just going to write VR for the volume of the rectangular prism. And the formula is length times width times height. So I'm going to do 25 times 10 times 12. Now keep in mind here that as long as you multiply these three numbers together, you're going to get the correct volume of the rectangular prism. So it doesn't matter if you do 12 times 10 times 25, whatever order you put these three numbers in, as long as you multiply these three together for the volume of the rectangular prism, you'll get 3,000. Now, whenever I hear VR, I think of when I used to play Mario Kart online. But anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with the question. So how do we get the volume of the cylinder? Pi r squared h is the formula. So for pi, we are to use 3.14. Now, for r squared, I'm going to use 9. Why 9? Well, we see here that r, or the radius, is equal to 3. And since it's r squared, we use 9 because 3 squared is 9. Now what about h? Well, h is 16. Okay, so let's do 3.14 times 9 times 16. And in my calculator, I get 452.16. So the last step here is to add these two numbers together. So we do 3,000 plus 452.16. And when we round, we're going to get C. So C is the correct answer here. In the champion fact segments in my videos, I like to pop out from behind the screen and answer a question or two from a random question generator, and I do this just to try to make the video a little bit more fun and to give you a quick break from math. Now, recently I haven't been doing these as much in my videos because I've answered so many questions over the last several years of doing this that it's getting harder to find questions I haven't answered, but here's one I don't think I've ever answered on this channel. If you were offered the position of mayor of your city, would you take it? I definitely wouldn't want that responsibility, so I wouldn't take it. What board game do you like the most? I would say two of my favorite board games are chess, although I haven't played in a while, so I'm pretty rusty. And also, there was a game I used to have, it was called Worst Case Scenario, where it was kind of like a survival game. It was pretty fun. TV show you secretly enjoy. I like Are You Afraid of the Dark? What is the approximate surface area of the cylinder? Please round your answer to the nearest whole number. So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out. The formula that you'll need is listed down here, And just know that on your test, you'll want to go to the formula sheet to look that formula up. And I'm just giving it to you to save some time since we're just practicing. So let me give you a chance now to pause the video, try this out, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause it and we'll talk about it. So we see here that the radius is 3. So down here in the formula where it says r, I'm going to plug in 3. All right, so I'm going to plug in 3 in the first part of the formula here, and then also over here in the second part of the formula. And 8 is h, so where we see the h, I'm going to plug 8 in. So let me rewrite these formulas, and I'm going to also replace the pi symbol with 3.14. So let me rewrite this, and then I'll show you what it's going to look like. So we'll have 2 times 3.14 times 3 times 8 plus 2 times 3.14 times 9. Now, why is it times 9 here? Well, in the formula, it's r squared. So I just went ahead and squared the 3, and that's how I have 9. So anyway, if we put this in the calculator, we'll see that the answer is about 207. Since we don't need the exact number, we just need the approximate surface area, and B is the correct answer here, 207. Merv and Violet ask Reggie to take care of their cylinder-shaped pool while they are away on a trip. They instruct Reggie to add 1 scoop of water stabilizer to the pool each week for every 24 cubic feet of water. Approximately how many scoops will Reggie add in total if Merv and Violet are gone for 3 weeks? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so let's talk about this question here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is use this formula for the volume of a cylinder here. And I have to keep in mind that this 22 feet number, this is showing the diameter. So I actually want to cut this in half to get the radius, right? So I'm going to plug 11 in here for the radius, for r. Now, it's actually asking for r squared in the formula. So 11 times 11 is 121. So when I do the volume of a cylinder formula, I know that I'm going to use 3.14 for pi. And for r squared, I'm going to use 121. And then the height is just this right here. It's 5. Okay, so this isn't going to get us the answer, but this is going to get us a little bit closer because this is going to give us the volume here. So 3.14 times 121 times 5, what I get is 1,899.7. So we have 1,899.7. So we know here that she's going to add 1 scoop for every 24 cubic feet of water each week, right? So we can write the proportion 1 over 24 equals x over 1,899.7. And this is a random dot here. I don't know why I have this dot here. But anyway, we're going to start with this proportion here. And this is going to tell us the number of scoops she's going to add for 1 week. And then if we triple that, we're going to get the answer. So if you have a different way of looking at this question here, that's perfectly fine. You can let me know down below in the comments if you want to. But this is how I'm looking at the question here. So essentially what we're going to do is 1,899.7 divided by 24, and that's going to give us the number of scoops for just 1 week. So when I do that, I get about 79. So let's say 79.15, something like that. And remember here, it's just asking, it just says approximately, so we don't need the exact value. So now what I'm going to do is take 79.15 and I'm going to triple it, right? So 79.15, that's the number of scoops per week, given that this is the volume, right? So let's triple it, and that's going to tell us the total number of scoops she's going to add over 3 weeks. So times 3 gives me 237.4625 is what I get my calculator. But again, we're just asked for approximately. So we see that A is the correct answer here. Coming up next is this video's Champions Challenge question. And in my opinion, it's the hardest one in the video, although I was really close to picking a different question. So let me know down below if you'd like to which one you think is the hardest one in the video. And without further ado, I'll let you try it out. If the area of a circle is 1,089 pi meters, what is the circumference measured in square meters? So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so to start off here, what we're going to do is use the area formula, A equals pi r squared, and we're going to use this to figure out what the radius of the circle is. So we know that the area of the circle is 1089 pi. So the fact that we have pi right here actually helps us out, because when we go to find r, we see that we've got a pi on both sides of the equal sign. So the pi's just cancel right out here. So we have 1089 equals r squared. Now, how do we get r here? Do we want to square 1089? Well, actually, the way that we do this is we want to take the square root of both sides here. Now, what is the square root of 1089? To do this in your calculator, you want to start by hitting second. Then you're going to hit this key right here, and it'll pull up the square root symbol. Then you type in 1089 and hit enter. And it gives us 33. So the square root of 1089 is 33. So in other words, 33 equals r. So the next step here is to use the formula for circumference. We have 2 times 3.14 times 33. So when we do this, we'll see that the answer is C, 207.24.